2030.
Saudi Arabia, the Point of Investment Fund,
It's a
there's
big
a lot of excitement
This
around
transformational
NEOM specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural, religious.
The 2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla.
This is the 2030 episode 27. Dr. Hanaa Al-Moabed, what's up? How are you?
I am doing well. How are you, Lucian?
I'm doing well. Busy week for both of us, but it's nice to see you back in London. How was your trip?
Yes. I'm only here very briefly before I go to Saudi, but so far my trip was okay. It's really nice being home. It's actually been, one of those like whirlwind weeks of trying to get over jet lag, getting the boys ready for school. I had construction workers here over the summer while I was away, so putting everything back where it belongs, fixing things that didn't quite get fixed, things like that. It's been good times.
As well as house guests, I'm sure, as well. And did your fish survive? I have to ask.
Oh my God. Why are you asking that question?
I'm curious because I'm curious. Did they make it?
Some of them did. One of them is really sick. And so I went to the I went to the, whatever they're called, the pet store yesterday. And I bought a whole bunch of things to treat the water. And she kind of perked up and she's doing a little bit better, but she's not doing great. So, and this is, our beta, and she's really beautiful. And so I want her to survive. Her name is Electra, and she's not very electric at the moment. So other than that, some of them did survive. I don't know. It's not, the tank is very sparse.
Did somebody come and manage that for you when you were gone? Or was it just you're just we're going to see, we're just going to let it ride?
We did not just let it ride. We had there's these little pyramid kind of holiday food blocks that you put in. So I had those inside, and then they just kind of peck away at those. And then somebody came in 4 times to check on them. Those are supposed to work for 2 weeks at a time. We were gone for 4 weeks. So, basically they kind of checked in between every week. But 2 weeks ago, no, a week and a half ago, they were doing really well. So it all happened at the very end, right before we got back.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Thoughts and prayers with Electra. I'm sure she will be bouncing back soon as she gets some of that good water in her. We have a great episode this time. We will be talking about Riyadh season in just a few moments. It is back. It seems to be bigger and better than ever. We're going to get to that in a second. Just wanted to read some feedback we got recently, actually a lot in the past few days. There's still so much coming in from our Ibrahim Al-Mojdal interview on LinkedIn and elsewhere. I guess a lot of people are seeing this stuff a little bit delayed, that when it comes out, we totally don't care at all. We're just happy that you're with us. This is from Justin O'Malley on LinkedIn. Hi, Lucian. I enjoy the 2030 podcast programming. Thanks for creating the content. I live in Switzerland, covering clients in Saudi, and find it a helpful way to stay on top of the latest developments. Thank you, Justin. Nice to connect with you. Switzerland. We are growing our audience base to many countries. It's nice to hear that we have some there. This one is from Sami Al-Zahrani, commented, "Great news," in all caps, on our segment on the Riyadh Metro on YouTube. Thank you, Sammy. Yes, it is great news. Stoked to ride that Metro. And this other one on the same segment from CJJ77. "I live in Riyadh and I can't wait for it to open." Yeah, cool. Me too.
Same.
I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, same. Yeah, thanks to everybody who's giving us this feedback, reaching out via WhatsApp, LinkedIn, email us at Hanaa@the2030 or Lucian@the2030 or host@the2030. There's a million ways for you to get in touch with us. Of course, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or X, I should say. Still not used to that. And you can send us DMs there or respond to whatever we're posting. We love seeing that stuff. And if you haven't subscribed to us yet, please do so, because it helps us out, helps us grow this thing out and learn a little bit about you guys. So really terrific to get this feedback. Dr. Hanaa, let's get to a deep dive. Okay, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Riyadh season 2024-2025 is coming. It says Riyadh season 2024, but it runs into early 2025. It's like the NFL football season in America where they say 2024 season, but about a third of it is played next year. Same with Riyadh season. It's coming. It's actually basically here now. It is back. It looks like it's going to be bigger and better than ever. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. Authorities released a 294-page booklet, which is actually a book. I mean, 294 pages is a book. I think you take let out at the end and it's not a booklet anymore. A booklet is like 30 to 40 pages. This is like a whole, 294 pages highlighting everything that will make up the 2024 Riyadh season. If you don't know what Riyadh season is, by the way, you're listening from the West, you haven't been to it yet. It's actually kind of a little bit difficult to describe. It's a months-long series of events, theme parks, concerts, pop-up restaurants, sports, entertainment offerings. It's all across the city and it's kind of under the umbrella of what's called Riyadh season. And it's a season. It's not like one event or a few weeks long. It's months long. So what's new for Riyadh season? I do not think we can get to all of it on this podcast today. Again, 294 pages of what to expect from Riyadh season this year. We will include a link to it in the YouTube video that this segment will appear on and on our podcasting platforms, and you can just download it from there. It's actually really cool. It is 294 pages, but it's very visual. So it's like you can kind of scroll through it and really get what you want, but it does include a really cool map at the beginning that kind of shows you where everything is in Riyadh. On sports, we'll see the introduction of tennis into the list of sporting events. The Six Kings Slam, featuring some of the world's best tennis stars, will take place in Riyadh, where the winter, by the way, is absolutely delightful when it comes to weather. We'll have Fury versus Usyk 2. So boxing is on the card this year again. We'll also have Beterbiev versus Bivol in a different type of boxing match, I think. And we've talked a little bit about Saudi Arabia's investments into boxing and the PIF's interest in perhaps creating a boxing league. So I think we'll see some more on that. UFC is coming to Riyadh as well. It cannot be Saudi Arabia without having a bunch of football among some of the events. You have the CAF Cup, where Champions League winners Al Ahly will face Confederations Cup from Africa, Zamalek. So you're going to have a bunch of different football games. Fashion shows. Elie Saab will have a dedicated night for fashion, and I believe they'll start introducing more and more fashion shows into Riyadh season, as Riyadh, as previously discussed on this podcast, is quite a fashionable place. You will also have, what's new, awards. There'll be an award ceremony called the Joy Awards that honors culture, art, cinema, music. Dr. Hanaa, there's Latino Night. Riyadh will still be showing sporting events at the Kingdom Arena, which is right near Hattin, where I lived, and it will also introduce a new building complex for entertainment offerings called The Venue, which is equipped with the latest audio-visual technology, flexible staging design, and superior sound quality. So I assume that is where they'll be doing a lot of the concerts and performances and having those at the Venue, and then more of the sporting events at the Kingdom Arena. Of course, Boulevard World, and that is probably one of my favorite parts about Riyadh season. It is absolutely insane. It's huge, and that's a holdover from previous years, but it looks like a lot of that is new. There's going to be a chill oasis, which is a beach where you can swim, but you're swimming in these like pebbles, I think. It's kind of hard to figure out what that is, but I definitely am looking forward to checking out that. And then there's a skiing school as well. And there's so much on Boulevard World. It's probably, 80 pages of this. Dining options. I mean, I couldn't make it through this thing without getting really hungry. You'll have cuisines from around the world, all of which look just amazing, especially as photographed. And the restaurants that they have in places like Boulevard World and pop-up restaurants elsewhere are divine. I will definitely be getting fatter in just a few months, so looking forward to that. There's a skiing school, so I think they're going to have some fake snow, but there's going to be a skiing school. And then you have cool things like the zoo, and there's a farm as well, which will make me feel like home, but I think it's a bunch of stuff with animals and stuff for children. Anyway, there's so much in this thing. You just got to check it out. Again, download it wherever you're seeing or listening to this and just flip through it on your phone. You'll kind of get a sense of how big this is. Really, everything on the entertainment side and sporting side is the same kind of offering, but there are new sports and it's almost totally different. And actually, this is what I really love about Riyadh season. And this is kind of the point that I want to make and why I wanted to do a deep dive on it. First of all, it's going to be the talk of the town in Riyadh for the coming months. So it's kind of a big deal. But I guess what I'm interested in, and I've been thinking about a little bit, is that Riyadh season now in its 4th or 5th year, I think, is sort of becoming a tradition. And I use that word because it's established now as really a world-class and frankly, globally unique annual series of events. There's really just nothing like it in the world today. But when you use the word tradition, that sort of implies that it's an annual event that is the same every year. When you think about annual festivals and carnivals and fairs around the world, and granted, Riyadh season is not just one event or one of those things, but all of them, 294 pages worth of them. But when you think about these traditional events annually, globally, with an emphasis on tradition, Christmas parades, Oktoberfest in Munich, summer carnivals and fairs, harvest festivals, etc., even major sporting events. You can't really name them all, but you think of continuity and you think of those events that are basically going to be the same every year. And honestly, that's not a bad thing at all because they're so rare and they're so short. They're part of our annual calendar. They fit into the same time and place every year in our lives, and then they're gone and we can't wait for them again. And this is what makes Riyadh season, to me anyway, not just different, but exceptional. Riyadh season is becoming a tradition, and there are themes and main elements of it that are similar each year. Boulevard World, of course, I just mentioned. But the last thing you would say about it is that it's the same every year. Very few things about Riyadh season this year are the same, and that goes for every year since it's launched. I mean, you would never really call it routine. Nobody's bored of it, for sure. What organizers and officials have managed to create with Riyadh season is kind of a unicorn, a tradition that is truly dynamic and evolving and improving every year. Something that elicits, I guess, a level of excitement and fun. And this really goes for all ages for me. And it has a recognizable brand and is part of the city's identity now. And it's fresh and new every year. I mean, that's quite a feat to accomplish. And really what's so brilliant about this is, to me, that's Saudi Arabia now. It's a nation that is rooted in traditions, that celebrates those traditions, but also is dynamic, changing, embracing new things, widening its appeal as it emerges globally as a cultural destination. My family and I, but I mean, especially my children, think Riyadh season is the coolest thing on earth. They ask about it all the time. And granted, they've only ridden this rock around the sun a few times, but for them, it's magical. For adults, it's kind of a blessing living in Riyadh to have these activities to be able to take your children to. And then these events are awesome. The amusements across the city. And even throughout Riyadh, I mean, you already have an established sort of restaurant city, a dining city, a foodie city that is great. The new restaurants that are kind of pop-ups and temporary that come with Riyadh season are also awesome. And they add kind of extra variety. For me personally, to be honest, I still can't get over what I'm seeing when I see things in Riyadh season. I mean, when I see Boulevard World, I first started coming to Riyadh regularly in 2008, 2009. So just seeing these huge events, amusement parks, listening to music in public, it's still kind of a striking reminder of how things used to be and how much has changed. So I will be hitting up almost all of this stuff with my family very soon. I can't wait for it. Check out the full 294-page brochure wherever you're listening to this. See for yourself that truly there's so much in here. Can't get to it all. But I hope to see some of you guys out there, and I hope everybody enjoys it. It should be awesome.
Thank you so much for that. I was thinking we really need to go over what's happening for Riyadh season after the announcement. Actually, as you mentioned, after the release of the book that details all of the different events that are happening. And of course, you know, if you've never been to Riyadh, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around the idea that there is something happening that's called a season. And it's not in one place. It's not in, you know, one particular, it's not for, you know, a few days. It's basically an activation of fun and entertainment that happens over the course of several months across multiple venues with lots of different entities participating in it. So you have different restaurants, local and from abroad, participating. You have all of these different fights, performances, displays, all coming to the kingdom for, you know, a few months to really kind of highlight just different opportunities to engage with what's on offer. And Riyadh is one of, I believe, 8 seasons. Is it 8 or 6 seasons across the kingdom? So this is, usually the biggest. It's the biggest city. And if you look through the book, you can see some of the things that are going on there. I also believe this is the 5th of the Riyadh seasons, which we weren't sure which one it was. So there's different things going on in the different zones that were already there. So Boulevard World now has Boulevard Runway, as you mentioned. Apparently that's in partnership with Saudi Airlines. And they're going to benefit from old unused aircraft models as well. There's going to be, again, as you mentioned, Elisab coming for a fashion show, Joy Awards ceremony with a number, which is that doubles last year's number, and so on. But I think what's interesting also is that there are several free events, things that people can do without having to pay, that include the zoo, that include a couple of the different areas, such as, let me see, what was it that I was going to say? Al-Awwalin Market, which is an experience of kind of all of the Saudi regions, their identity, popular foods from all around the regions of Saudi Arabia. Al-Awwalin means kind of the ancestors. And also there's going to be a couple of other areas where you can just go and experience kind of international cuisine, international pavilions that are also for free. So I thought that it's important to just note that, yes, while some of this can be costly, where, there's different tiers of tickets that you can get for some of the different events that are going on, some of it is also for free, and the vibe is for free as well, because it definitely makes Riyadh a much more vibrant place while the season is happening.
Free vibes in Riyadh for any takers. It's a great point. There are different things for you to do based on price. There was some stuff that we didn't want to do last year as a family because we didn't know if our children would enjoy it for the price. And there was so much other stuff to do that we were like, we don't really need to do this because, just walking around Boulevard World, is so cool. It's kind of like, I haven't been to Disney World since I was a little boy, but it's sort of like that a little bit, but it's totally unique and different. And it's so new. It's purpose-built, really, and there's so much shopping and things to do. It just is wild. And you have to, if you're in Riyadh, you almost can't miss it. But if you're in Riyadh for work, especially if you're visiting for work, take one of the evenings where you're hanging out after a long day and go check out Boulevard World or go to some of these events and see for yourself, because it's just so unbelievable.
I'm just going to say that Sharqiya, so Eastern Province season, is also going to happen this year. And usually I think that happens in May and June. So once Riyadh season is over and you miss it because you weren't in Saudi during that time, you can always hop over to the Eastern Province in May or June and kind of get a flavor of that season as well. And there are many other seasons, of course, that other people, like I think Jeddah season is coming to an end or just finished recently. So yeah, Riyadh season is incredible, but the rest of the kingdom has a lot on offer as well.
I love that little plug for the Eastern Province. You couldn't help yourself. And if you do want to keep those good Riyadh vibes going, you just keep it going. You go to the Eastern Province in May and have yourself a great time in Hanaa's hometown. Sounds good. Dr. Hanaa, let's get to the news.
I had to say it.
You had to. I'm so proud of you. Yeah,
you were like, when's the khabar one? Well, actually, we have one. It's coming up.
I love that.
The Saudi energy company ACWA Power has secured 9.7 billion riyals, which is the equivalent of $2.6 billion in financing for the construction of 3 large solar PV power plants in Saudi, totaling 5.5 gigawatts. The funds will be used for the construction and operation of the 2 gigawatt Hudlan project, the 2 gigawatt Moya project, and the 1.5 gigawatt Al Khashabi project, located in Mecca and Al Qasim. The financing was secured from a consortium of local and international banks, namely Bank Saudi Fransi, Emirates, NBD, First Abu Dhabi Bank, HSBC, Mizuho Bank, Riyadh Bank, Saudi National Bank, and Standard Chartered Bank. And in June 2024, ACWA Power signed power purchase agreements with the Saudi Power Procurement Company, SPPC, for the 3 projects.
Saudi solar. This is a question I get from literally every white guy ever that asks about Saudi Arabia. Why don't they just lean into solar? It's sunny there all the time. 3,000 hours of sunlight a year in certain places in Saudi Arabia. So it seems like an obvious fit. It's super good to see this. At the end of 2023, installed solar capacity, 2.3 gigawatts in Saudi Arabia, represented just 2.5% of Saudi Arabia's total energy capacity and less than 1% of its power generation. The country plans to reach 50% renewable energy production capacity by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2060. I can tell you that maybe this pivot towards solar and renewables is a little bit later than some people would have liked to see or maybe thought that they would do, but it is happening, and it's happening big time right now. You, of course, have the Sudair solar installation, which is about 2 hours north of Riyadh, which is huge. It can power up to 185,000 homes, 3.3 million solar panels covering 14 square miles of desert. That is unreal. And you have Saudi Aramco as well, really now, like you can see it in Aramco, and you're not going to see it yet as they start to invest along with ACWA Power and others into these solar installations and other renewable projects around the kingdom. But Saudi Aramco's pivot has already happened. In 2023, a tenth of Aramco's capital spending, equivalent to $4 or $5 billion a year, and a sixth of its research and development budget is another $540 million a year, are earmarked for non-hydrocarbon investments. One-fifth in 2023, one-fifth of the roughly 1,000 patents that Aramco secured in America were related to decarbonization and digital technologies. Saudi Aramco alone plans to invest in 12 gigawatts of solar PV and wind projects and reduce its upstream carbon intensity by 15% by 2035. And of course, Aramco has several venture capital arms. And through these venture capital arms, it is planning to spend at least $2 billion to $4 billion in new investments into renewables and clean technologies. So you have the pivot happening now. We're mid-pivot, so enjoy it, because there is this coming solar and renewable boom in Saudi Arabia. It's also happening in the hydrogen space. In July of 2024, Aramco announced that it would acquire a 50% stake in Air Products' Quadra Blue Hydrogen Industrial Gases Company. Aramco is an investor in the two Al Shuaibah solar projects in Jeddah with a capacities of 600 megawatts and 2.03 gigawatts, respectively, at a cost of about $2.2 billion. And Aramco is investing as well in carbon capture storage. It's something we've talked about on the show. It's investing in a large-scale hub of CCS in Jubail, in the Jubail Industrial Zone, to capture and store carbon dioxide emissions. So you're going to start seeing these solar and renewable energy plants start popping up all around Saudi Arabia. As I said, we're mid-pivot, so it's not really here yet. Sudair, I believe, is finished. A New York Times reporter went recently and couldn't believe what he saw. There's a great article about it where he describes his surprise at how big this installation was, and it's good to see this happening. So this is a good story for sure.
No, absolutely. And you know what? Actually, the pivot has happened quite some time ago, but the technology wasn't quite there. So there's been investments in this research for, from at least 2010. There's been, I know that KAUST, for instance, right after being founded, had a research chair dedicated to photovoltaic research. I remember Robbie Holding was a big part of that establishment of that lab. And, I don't think that lab is operating anymore, but now there's so much research in KAUST on renewables, right? And I think the point is there was all those questions about battery storage, about dust, about how we can capture this energy and actually use it. And the research is catching up now, and that's why you're seeing these big bucks. And Aramco, they've been investing in blue hydrogen for a while, in addition to this new investment that you just mentioned. They had already signed an $8.4 billion green hydrogen plant built in Neom with ACWA Power. There's things that have been happening for a long time on renewables, and the tech is finally catching up to the point where now investors can see that they're viable projects and putting money behind it. So let's hope that the tech really is there and we can continue to see improvements. But I believe that, just rebranding Aramco as an energy company several years back really did show a commitment. We're not necessarily all about oil and gas, but we really are looking at being the hub for renewables.
Yeah, and that deal you mentioned in Neom was also signed with Air Products, which I believe is a either Pittsburgh or a Pennsylvania-based company. I think that what you were referencing earlier, the 2010, early 2010s kind of drive, that was led by KA Care, the King Abdullah City for Atomic and Renewable Energy. They're still around, but what we're really seeing now is a ton of activity in the private sector. You're seeing it start to make sense financially, basically, for entities like Aramco and for ACWA Power, and then when you get a list of banks like that to back you up, I mean, that's always a really good sign. They see a route toward profitability. So all of that is super positive. So maybe we're not mid pivot. Maybe we're like on the other side of the pivot point. We're like at 60 to 70%. Just great to see and nice to have now increasingly things to point to when my white guy friends say, what about solar? It's like, well, it's happening. On August 11th, 2024, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia unveiled a new investment law which repeals the existing foreign investment law to enhance attraction of international investments and equality between domestic and foreign workers. The new investment law will take effect, 6 months from its publication in the official Gazette, with the implementing regulations expecting to be released within the same period. The new investment law is part of a broader set of pro-investment regulatory developments introduced by the kingdom, including the civil transaction law, the 2022 companies law, the creation of special economic zones, and changes to the merger control notification thresholds. Law firm White & Case, in an alert on their company's website recently, said the law was, quote, a welcome development that is set to enhance the attractiveness of the business and investment landscape into the kingdom.
New investment law is set to apply to both local and foreign investors, which is a major deviation from the existing foreign investment law that primarily addresses foreign investors. The new investment law appears to eliminate the requirement for investors to obtain licenses, currently known as foreign investment licenses, as part of the efforts to simplify the process, and it refers to a registration process rather than the traditional licensing process. The new investment law explicitly allows for the possibility of granting investment incentives based on specific objective and pre-announced eligibility criteria to be detailed in the forthcoming implementation regulations. The new law distinguishes between serious and non-serious violations, which will be defined also as they continue to kind of publish the implementation regulations. It also includes a kind of more color to how to settle disputes, which I know something people talk to me a lot, like, what if it doesn't work out? How can we, where can we go? What are the courts like? So in cases where disputes emerge between investors and competent authorities in the kingdom, disputes will be resolved by the competent local court unless the parties to the dispute agree otherwise. And in this regard, the new law expressly recognizes investors' rights to resort to alternative disputes resolution mechanisms, such as arbitration, mediation, and reconciliation, in addition to seeking recourse from the competent courts.
I think this is an interesting quote from a Bloomberg article on sort of the new law, and it really captures the excitement, and people are really looking forward to this. I mean, one of the things that it's going to do, and I think that's going to be probably most impactful for the beginning of your journey as a potential foreign investor, is what you just mentioned, Hanaa, which is the one-time registration process for investors. Instead of what would normally be several licenses, pre-approvals, basically a lot of red tape. And that may have scared investors off. But this is from this Bloomberg article about this. Foreign investors and law firms caution that the success of the new measures will hinge on how the laws are implemented. The Ministry of Investment said it plans to publish details on those rules for public consultation by late September. And the article quotes Graham Coop, a partner at Pinsent Masons in London, in your backyard. He said, quote, practical application is everything. Once we see the implementing regulations and how they're implemented in practice, we'll be able to better judge whether the new investment law and regulations will actually have all the positive effect as promised. So yeah, it's not just about kind of a new law and these are the new rules, but the following on regulations and the sort of implementation, all that stuff is critical. And this is something that they've needed to do, right, to really boost foreign investment. It's one of the top goals of Vision 2030 is to become a place where investors from around the world are comfortable investing and they feel comfortable with local laws and regulations. They know what they're doing. It's very clear. There isn't a lot of confusion or, of course, red tape. So this is definitely a welcome development.
No, absolutely. And hopefully we will be able to get somebody on to really talk us through how these changes came about and what investors can expect.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Saudi Arabia was struck by thunderstorms and flash flooding on most of its Red Sea coast on Friday, with footage on social media showing roads inundated and cars stranded in floodwater. The rains were expected to last until Tuesday, prompting the directorate to urge the citizens to remain on alert and adhere to safety guidelines issued through media as per Saudi Gazette. We're talking about Tuesday, the 3rd of September.
Yeah, I was speaking with a client a couple days ago who had just returned from Riyadh to Jeddah, and I asked him, "Hey, how was Riyadh, dude?" And he was just like, "Riyadh was great. When I landed in Jeddah, it was basically Venice. It was so much rain in such a short amount of time. I don't think it's the rainy season really in Jeddah. I think this is a bit of an anomaly." And he said, obviously it's way better than it was in earlier years where there was no drainage at all and no, solutions for when you get a torrential downpour like they got. Some of the photos online and videos that I have seen indicate that they got a lot of rain in just a short amount of time. This gentleman was able to walk home from the airport. He said it was quite a long walk, but he wanted to leave his car there because he didn't want it to flood and become damaged. But yeah, still a city that needs to have better solutions for this, because as I understand it, these storms are going to get more and more severe as climate change continues to affect pretty much everywhere and every place around the world. Yeah, hope everybody's safe. There were a few deaths as well. So yeah, sad to see crazy footage and videos online for this.
Yeah, I was on a call actually a couple of days ago, and one of the women on the call apologized for the background noise because her daughter was doing Zoom school because the schools were closed. And she's like, yeah, she's in the background doing Zoom school. And that's what happens now a lot of the times. I think, one of the really interesting things about COVID is that going online and going to school remotely is now something that people in Saudi are really used to doing. And so it's kind of a fallback mechanism. And so we're lucky that we have that acceptable, kind of approach to not making everything stop, the working from home, the remote schooling and whatever. But it does really disrupt the day-to-day. So, I think in terms of thinking about renewables, that's really important. We don't want our energy disrupted, but we also need to start thinking about urban planning in different ways and how we're going to manage these extreme weather patterns. And you're absolutely right. Like the Jeddah floods that were, that put floods in Jeddah on the books and kind of in everybody's radar were in November of 2009. So this is much earlier than expected. And it's something we really need to start thinking about when we build cities, is how we're going to respond to these types of crises. That always, wherever you are in the world, when there are extreme weather patterns, it's usually the people on the lower economic, kind of socioeconomic scale that are the ones that are most affected. So making sure that there's really secure, good housing is super important, but also that just the infrastructure within cities isn't disrupted as well.
It's so difficult to do that after a city is built. And that's the challenge Saudi Arabia has. These cities were built over decades and decades and decades, and the challenges were not really the same. I mean, Riyadh is the same way. And so to retrofit an existing city with things like drainage and, underground sewers and levees and places to put the water when it rains really hard is very expensive, very difficult, super disruptive to the people living there. Less disruptive than big storms coming and creating floods, of course. But I just mentioned that because you mentioned when you build cities, like when you are building new neighborhoods or new districts, or in Saudi Arabia's case, several new kind of mini cities within cities, you got to plan for this. I know they are. But for a place like Jeddah, it's been there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so it just kind of is what it is. Retrofitting that city is difficult. I remember I've only had, obviously I went to school in the United States. I only had one day of school in my whole life that was canceled because of rain. I think it was Hurricane Isabel way back in the day. And that was the only time school would ever be canceled for rain. We would have school canceled for snow quite regularly. And there was a TV show. It was like the county TV show, a TV channel, and they had a little ticker at the bottom. And I remember just sitting there staring at it, praying that they would release the ticker notifying that all schools are closed because of snow. And sometimes you wouldn't get it, and it was super disappointing. But when we got school canceled, we didn't do anything. We just played all day and just like there was no learning. And now you have Zoom as an option to keep kids going instead of just going and playing Xbox or going outside and wandering around and coming back with animals that you find. It's critical.
I just want to say that they have been working on it, right? Those 2009 floods really did change the way people thought about kind of where to build, what housing needs to look like, what the infrastructure needs to be like. But as you mentioned, it's really difficult. The thing is, you don't want to end up, just to use an example from your country, you don't want to end up with a Hurricane Katrina situation where you have to rebuild a whole city all over again because it's completely wiped out because the infrastructure wasn't built in the right way, or wasn't reinforced. So I know it's hard, but we have some really innovative young people around the world that should be working on these challenges because they're definitely related to climate change and future crises. And so we need to think about building as one of the really important, and urban planning, right, as one of the really important sciences that we need to invest in. That's just my point of view.
I see how it is. So when we're talking about things like Katrina, then it's my country. But that's a completely different story, though, because that city is under sea level. Shouldn't be there, to be honest. And they get hit with hurricanes every single year. So,
But a lot of these developments, these housing developments used to be in the pathways, in the different valleys where water drains off. And so they've stopped that practice in most cases. But that's kind of what when I went to Tabuk several years ago, we walked through a very, very cool valley, Wadi Dis, and they were like, this used to be paved, but we had to repave it every single year. So we stopped paving it because every single year it just gets completely eroded by the water draining into it. And so I think that we know this, and we need to talk to locals about when we're developing, especially our new giga projects and new cities and new developments, what does this look like? Stakeholder engagement is super important.
Yeah, that's exactly what my client said. He said there are traditionally kind of areas where things would drain and they would go through the city. You can also see, I didn't mean to imply earlier that nothing is being done. You can literally see when you're flying into Jeddah, all of the huge drainage and ditch projects that are happening and have been completed there from the airplane as you land. I mean, the effort is there, the effort is underway. And honestly, like even if you have all of that stuff, these things can flood quickly. Water is powerful. So yeah, super interesting topic though too. I mean, a few times ago when I was in Jeddah, but probably about a year ago now, we had meetings in Kaust, and then they wanted to kind of push the meetings up a little bit so that we had time to get to the airport from Kaust because of the rain. And that was kind of just a funny thing to hear because, heavy rain like that can snarl traffic in any city, but it can also be dangerous if you're in a car. Turn around, don't drown, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Okay, last item in news. Minister of Finance Mohammed Al-Jadaan said the number of fintech companies in Saudi Arabia reached 224 by the end of the second quarter 2024, surpassing the Financial Sector Development Program's target of 168 companies for the same period. In his opening speech at the 24 Fintech 2024 conference, Al-Jadaan added that the kingdom aims to increase the number of fintech companies to 525 by 2030. He added that the value of venture capital investment in Saudi fintech companies amounted to Saudi riyals 7.1 billion, which is like 1.6 billion dollars by the end of the second quarter of 2024.
Online payments in the retail sector dominated 70% of total payments in 2023 compared to 62% a year earlier. Achieving FSDP, what does that mean?
Financial Sector Development Program.
Thank you. Achieving the Financial Sector Development Program of 2025 target. The minister noted that the kingdom seeks to increase its percentage to 80% by 2030. I mean, how do you feel about fintech? Like, this sounds like great news. And I know there are really like a huge kind of young population in Saudi. So this is obviously catering to young people. They're very kind of tech savvy, but it's like, isn't there like this fintech culture that is just like very exclusive and probably the same thing over and over again? Like, how much innovation is actually happening in the sector, and how much innovation do we actually need in the sector? I'm just really curious. I don't actually know the answer.
Fintech is not an area that I've focused on in investment in the past. One of the reasons why I'm a little bit skeptical of fintech in general is because fintech is sort of like, it's a global industry, right? It's like fintech, if it works somewhere, it should work somewhere else. I mean, there should be some, overlap and some local nuances and everything. And Saudi Arabia, the way that I think about Saudi Arabia from an investment standpoint, it's a large market. It's super young. You have this app and kind of tech savvy, youthful population. It is surprising going to Saudi Arabia, and especially in Riyadh and Jeddah and the big cities, there's just basically no cash at all. Everything is digital, and that's really good. For me, I kind of like technologies that have a global market. It is really tough to come up with fintech apps and ideas and solutions that aren't already being built by Apple and MasterCard and some other international players in the space. It's a highly developed space in the West, but there is a big market for it in Saudi Arabia. And the key thing is for them, if they can get this to be exportable technology. If there is fintech that is emerging from Saudi Arabia that no one else has done, then fintech is immediately a winner and a darling of the Saudi tech space. And I know a few companies like it where I've heard ideas that are quite innovative. There is a company called Sci-Fi run by His Excellency Ahmed Al-Hakbani. He used to be CEO of Saudi Customs, head of Saudi Customs. That company is innovative and they're very good and they're doing very well in Saudi Arabia. And they have signed partnerships with MasterCard and other corporations. So they're one of the success stories actually I don't hear too much about. But yeah, I mean, this is also goes into Saudi Arabia's tech ecosystem is nascent. It's like at the beginning. We are at the very beginning of a long journey. And when you have these things sort of start up, you go for the low-hanging fruit. You go for the local market. You go for solutions that can make you profitable in the area around you. So you see a lot of things like fintech and you see marketplaces. You see consumer-focused companies, ride-hailing apps, food delivery, and that is getting quite advanced in Saudi Arabia. The key thing is, can you make the jump to AI? Can you be the ones that define what the next AI is? That's what's going to make you a powerhouse globally in terms of tech. You have the kingdom investing $100 billion into Alat, which is like a sort of ecosystem developer, but more for industrial technologies and making things to be made locally in Saudi. And then you have the news that they're going to invest maybe up to $40 billion into a new AI fund, along with Andreessen Horowitz. That was reported this spring. We talked about it on the show. Nothing new on that since then. But Saudi Arabia, if it really wants to be a tech powerhouse, it has to export tech. I'm not sure that's going to come in fintech or not. But I do want to say that congrats to the conference organizers because they had all of the who's who in Saudi Arabia. It sort of, to me, anecdotally, and I'm sorry I'm ranting on this, kind of kicked off a calendar of events in Saudi Arabia where they are really hosting these major global events outside of Riyadh season for conferences. This was kind of the first one where a lot of people that I know were going to sort of start the fall, winter, spring season. So it looked like a really awesome show.
No, I think it's important to think about that. I mean, obviously, we do want the investments to go into an area that has the potential to grow significantly and have global reach instead of traditional kind of funding for things that probably were very local, not very innovative, and a replica of something that already existed. So this is exciting. And yes, congratulations. And also, I hope that perhaps they find the next unicorn and they're all inspired by the who's who that came and talked about it. And they're like, wait a minute, I could do that better. Like, I hope that happens. So
I'd like to invite Ahmed Al-Hakbani on the show in the coming weeks to talk about it, talk about what he's doing. Really, really smart dude. So maybe he will join us to discuss sci-fi and some other stuff in the fintech space. It kind of echoes what Ibrahim Al-Mojal said the other day with us, is essentially like, we're at the very beginning of this thing. And right now, what we do see is a lot of replicas, and that can still make you a lot of money. Venture people are interested in that if it works. I mean, some of the most successful companies in the world are replicas of previous ideas, slightly better, name change billionaires. Let's get to shout outs. Dr. Hanaa.
All right. So my shout out today is to the Saudi Paralympic champion, Abdurrahman Al-Qurashi, who clinched the gold medal at the Kobe 2024 World Para Athletics Championships held in the Japanese city of Kobe until May 27th. The Kobe 2024 Games, serving as qualifiers for the Paris 2024 Summer Paralympic Games, brought together over 1,000 male and female athletes representing 145 countries. So Al-Qurashi claimed the gold medal in the T53 wheelchair 100-meter race, crossing the finish line with an impressive 14.8 seconds. He was followed by Brazilian athlete Fernandes da Silva, who secured the silver medal with 15.05 seconds, while Tunisian athlete Mohammed Al-Jadaan took home the bronze. Al-Qurashi qualified for the Paris 2024 Paralympics Games after winning the silver medal at the 2023 World Para-Athletics Championships in the French capital. Congratulations.
There is nothing more inspiring than the Paralympics. Congratulations. That is a huge accomplishment, a huge inspiration story. Absolutely love to hear it. And congratulations to all the athletes that are competing in the Paralympics now in Paris. Just really wonderful, the determination and the heart that these athletes have. Just you can't even talk about it because it's so impressive and wonderful. Congratulations. My shout out this week, also in the sporting world, look at us. I want to talk first a little bit about Live Golf, which is having, I believe, its third season now, is coming up February 6th to 8th. And they have announced, Live Golf organizers have announced that the first event for Live Golf in 2025 will be in Riyadh and not at Cake at the Royal Greens, which is usually where they hold the Live Golf events. That's a beautiful course. But this year, the tournament will kick off in Riyadh at Riyadh Golf Club, where I have played and have used the driving range probably too many times. It's a great facility and getting better. It's one that is completely transformed from when I first started going there to now, where they're hosting international events for both men and women. I saw a women's championship there recently, and the course was sick. It was so beautiful. And then at the end for the ceremony, they brought all of the prize camels on. I think I told you about this. On the course, walked up with a trophy and presented it to her on the green, which would not typically be done in the United States, but super cool. My shout out is to Noah Ali Reza, who is CEO of Golf Saudi. He took over the job in 2023. He succeeds Majid Al-Soror in the role. Golf Saudi is not Live Golf. They are separate things. Golf Saudi is a kind of nonprofit company that is aiming to grow the game of golf within Saudi. They are having enormous amount of success. Of course, people are seeing Live Golf and they're seeing the PIF's investments in golf. They see Yasser Al-Rumayyan playing golf and they are thinking it's cool now. And that is so awesome, especially for me, a golf enthusiast. Noah Ali Reza, who is CEO of Golf Saudi, is not going to be organizing this tournament, but having some of the best players in the world come start off the Live Golf season in Riyadh at the Riyadh Golf Club will be amazing for him. I know he had a part in this, and it will be amazing for the development of golf in Riyadh, where you have not just that course, you also have Dirab, which is about 20 to 30, maybe 40 minutes outside of Saudi Arabia. It's my favorite one. It's outside of Riyadh, excuse me. It's my favorite one in the city because it's kind of in the mountains. It looks like Arizona. It's so dope. Then you'll have a new one coming to Qadiyah, and you have the launch of the golf course in Diriyah. Golf. Hanaa is rolling her eyes super hard over there, but I can just tell you that this is a big win for Noah Ali Reza, who will see membership in Golf Saudi and interest in Golf Saudi grow significantly in the lead up to and after this event for Live Golf in Riyadh. I will be attending Live Golf Riyadh, inshallah, if everything goes well. I will definitely make a point of it. So congrats to Noah Ali Reza and all the young golfers out there who will get to see some of the best players come to Riyadh.
Congratulations to Noah. Yes, that is great. Actually, a friend of mine, his wife is a friend of mine. Haven't seen her in ages though, so maybe this is an opportunity to share the episode, make sure that they hear the shout out. So yeah, congratulations to them. Very exciting.
Maybe she's playing a lot of golf now. Maybe you need to pick up the clubs and start working on your swing. You can go out there and play 18 with her, rekindle the friendship. I don't know. It's just an idea.
So if she is playing golf, I'll ask her if I could get some pointers from the experts because they know what they're doing. Oh, or you could maybe tell me how to do it as well, possibly.
Yeah.
Not really my thing.
Well, you never know. I mean, have you ever really played 18 holes of golf? It's fantastic. Great networking
I do
thing
hear
as
that
well.
there's like you're right. There was that one article in the Wall Street Journal that says like playing golf is actually a skill that like CEOs are looking for when they're hiring kind of people in their companies. So that was interesting. But yeah, I feel like there's like this big fashion industry around golf, and I could maybe get behind that.
Yeah. There is I have like a whole separate outfit, like a whole separate part of my wardrobe is like golf.
There you go.
Performance polos, the shorts, fancy belts, the whole thing. I absolutely love everything about it. Okay, we were off topic. Great episode, Dr. Hanaa. See you next time.
Thank you.